Lane Lines to Shorelines, your complete guide to open water swimming, covers an array of topics that will get you out of the pool and into the open water, with the physical skills, techniques, and mental confidence you need for enjoyable and efficient open water swimming. For newbies, Lane Lines to Shorelines will strip away whatever fears you may have about the open water and guide you step by step toward that feeling of liberation and exhilaration shared by so many other open water swimmers. For the more seasoned, Lane Lines to Shorelines will teach you the strategies and tactics that can lead you to the next level of performance and give you a competitive race day edge. Topics include basic safety considerations, swimming equipment, swim skills and techniques, the challenges of open water, physical acclimatization, creating inner warmth, physical and mental training, race day considerations and strategies, and a special bonus feature on swimming from Alcatraz. Join hosts Gary Emick and Phil DiGirolamo in this comprehensive and all-encompassing open water swimming DVD. Gary is the world record holder for Alcatraz swims, over 450 crossings without wetsuit or fins. Phil is a top age group triathlete, certified USA Triathlon coach, and US Masters swim coach. Together, they have a tremendous wealth of education, knowledge, and experience which is yours to share in Lane Lines to Shorelines, your complete guide to open water swimming.
Before the advent of stadium spectator sports such as soccer, football, and baseball, open water swimming was an extremely popular sport paying large purses and attracting even larger crowds. 19th century poet Lord Byron romanticized open water swimming with his aquatic adventures throughout the Mediterranean, including a swim across the Turkish Hellespont. In 1875, Captain Matthew Webb garnered worldwide attention when he became the first person to swim across the English Channel, a feat for which he received $45,000, an enormous fortune in those days. William Wrigley Jr., the chewing gum magnate, offered a purse of $40,000 in 1927 to the first person to cross the 21-mile channel from Catalina Island to Los Angeles. Over 100 swimmers entered the event, and even more incredibly, over 15,000 spectators were on hand to cheer the 3 a.m. arrival of the first finisher. Success of the Catalina Channel swim prompted Wrigley to sponsor a second marathon swim in 1927, the $50,000 21-mile Canadian National Exhibition swim in Lake Ontario. This spectator event attracted thousands who either watched from the shore or followed the swimmers on steamboats, as well as those who thronged 15 movie theaters rigged to deliver live-action radio coverage of the event. This hugely popular annual swim lasted nearly 40 years, making the winners household names capable of drawing lucrative sponsorships. Today, with the inclusion of a 10-kilometer open water swim in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and with the ever-increasingly popular sport of triathlon, already an Olympic sport, open water swimming is enjoying a well-deserved resurgence. Pool swimmers sometimes ask, what's the big deal about open water swimming? For those of you bitten by the bug, you know swimming without the constraints of walls and lane lines is fun and exhilarating. Even those wanting to venture out of the pool fear and dread not being able to see in murky waters, feel lost without having black lines to follow, let imaginations run rampant about man-eating monsters lurking in the water's depths, panic when waves crash over their heads and into their mouths and noses, and for the life of them can't fathom why anyone willingly would swim in water cold enough to chill their beer or Chardonnay.
Hi, I'm Gary Emick, Alcatraz swim record holder, nearly 400 crossings without fins or wetsuit, and still counting.
And I'm Phil DiGirolamo. I've been coaching swimming since 1971, and I am a USAT certified level 1 coach.
Welcome to Lane Lines to Shorelines, your complete guide to open water swimming. This DVD is intended to strip away whatever fears you may have about open water swimming, make you feel at one with the water, and enhance your ability to master the skills and techniques necessary for enjoyable and efficient open water swimming.
Follow along as we review basic safety considerations,
swimming equipment,
swim skills and techniques,
the challenges of open water,
physical acclimations,
creating inner warmth,
physical and mental training,
race day considerations and strategies. While swimming, and particularly open water swimming, has inherent risks, a few common sense ground rules can make your swim a safe swim. First of all, your mother was right. Never swim alone.
Always have another swimmer with you, a kayaker, or even someone walking along the shore. Preferably, swim where trained lifeguards are on duty. They're familiar with water conditions such as temperature, clarity, currents, submersed objects, bottom conditions, and other factors that may impact your swim. If you advise the lifeguard of your swimming plan, you can rest assured they'll keep a watchful eye on you. Rule number 2, always wear a brightly colored cap such as fluorescent red, orange, or yellow. These colors stand out against the blues, greens, and grays of most open water. Swimming with dark blue, dark green, gray, black, or white caps is not recommended since these colors make you virtually invisible, especially in rough water. A third fundamental safety consideration is to know and be aware of local boat traffic. Even with a brightly colored cap, you may not be visible to a pilot who has momentarily taken his eyes off the water, who is steering into the sun, or who simply is not paying attention. Play it safe. Swim where there is no boat traffic if you can, or have an experienced pilot escort you in a kayak or boat. For an extra measure of safety, affix a diver down flag to the support craft.
Riptides, sneaker waves, and backrush, also known as undertow, kill any number of inexperienced beachgoers and swimmers each year. Let's take a look at these 3 water conditions and learn how to protect yourself.
As the name implies, backrush is created when a receding wave rushes back off the beach. Unaware individuals can lose their balance, topple over, and get pulled into deeper water. The term undertow frequently is used, but it inaccurately suggests a condition that sucks people under the water. The important thing to remember about backrush is it's short-lived. It lasts only until the next wave breaks ashore. If you're caught unexpectedly, plant your feet firmly in the sand and wait for the water to recede. Then trot up the beach to safer ground. A riptide is created when a wave breaks over a sandbar close to the beach. The force of the water creates a 50 to 250 foot breach in the sandbar. It then rushes out, creating a tremendous current. Most people panic and try to swim straight back to shore. Because they are fighting against a powerful outgoing current, they soon lose energy. If caught in a riptide, swim parallel to the shore until you've gotten out of its grip. Then you can turn and head back into shore. Riptides normally are visible from the beach. You'll notice a different texture to the water than what's on either side. Waves in a riptide also are either smaller or non-existent because the outgoing current flowing over the incoming surge suppresses their formation. Surfers use riptides for a free ride out past the waves. Once past the break, they paddle sideways, getting out of the rip and setting themselves up to catch the next wave back in. This is the same strategy you can use if caught in one. Next time at the beach, see if you can spot surfers riding a riptide back out to the lineup, or ask a surfer to point one out. Chances are, if you look for a section of water with diminished waves and different water texture, you'll be able to spot the riptide for yourself. Sneaker waves, also known as rogue or sleeper waves, are much more infrequent but can also cause problems. They simply are a wave much larger than any others. Their danger is they come up the beach further than normal waves and can catch you off guard. The simplest precaution to avoid sneaker waves is never to turn your back on the ocean and to keep an eye on all incoming waves. For those of you who swim in rivers, here are several basic safety issues to consider. Foremost is the current. Do you know how strong it is? From shore, water may appear to be still when the current really is moving swiftly out in the middle. There may be back eddies near the shore that can spin you around and submerged branches that can snag you. If the river is dammed upstream, a release by the hydroelectric power plant can drastically change the water level within a few short hours. Are there rapids nearby that pose a danger? Do you know how clean the water is? There may be a wastewater treatment plant or other industry upstream that discharges water into the river. What's the water bottom like where you'll get in and out? Muddy or rocky? If you take these safety concerns into consideration, rivers are great places to train because of the currents. If your swim is across the river, practice aiming upstream from your intended destination since you must compensate for the current. Swimming along the river shore into the current affords you the opportunity to streamline your body position and minimize the effect of the current. For lake swimmers, currents usually aren't a factor, but wind may kick up, making the water choppy. Many lakes were created when dams were built. These may have old trees below the surface. Be aware of them. Know the water depth. Be careful of algae growing on rocks or on boat ramps that create a slipping hazard when entering or exiting the water. And for all swimmers, whether ocean, river, or lake, Be aware of forecasted weather conditions. In the water is not where you want to be when a thunderstorm rolls through. By knowing water conditions and associated hazards, by having another person with you, and by being visible, you can be assured of a safe swim.
Open water swimming is such a great sport because you need so little equipment. Basically a swimsuit, a cap, and goggles. Although in colder water, swimmers frequently add in a wetsuit, a neoprene cap, and earplugs. Goggles are the most important piece of equipment you'll buy, and the type you select should take into consideration your individual facial structure. A goggle that doesn't fit properly and leaks creates an annoying condition that's arguably worse than swimming without goggles. Repeatedly adjusting the strap to prevent leaking goggles is not a solution. Finding a pair that fits your face correctly is. Many open water swimmers use smaller lensed pool goggles, but you may want to consider a pair with larger lenses since they offer an incredible field of vision, something that's particularly critical when you're being bounced about in rough water. And contrary to what you may think, they don't increase your drag. An ancillary benefit for cold water swimmers is that by covering more of your face, more of your body is protected from the sting of the cold water. Once you find a pair that properly fits your face, consider buying several pairs. One with clear lenses for early morning and overcast conditions, one with dark lenses for bright sunny days, and one with tinted, either orange, gray, or blue for foggy conditions. If poor eyesight is a problem, many goggles can be fitted with prescription lenses. Finally, despite the claims about the anti-fog properties of most goggles, consider anti-fog drops. Place a drop in each lens, rub it about, and rinse it out. Nothing is more distracting than swimming through fogged up goggles. Many folks rely on saliva for a protective coat of the inside lens, but the anti-fog drops found at most scuba dive and sporting goods shops guarantee a fog-free swim. Swim caps are mandatory in most open water competitions for safety purposes, but they also aid in keeping your body core temperature warmer. There are three basic types of swim caps. First is a very thin latex swim cap that comes in just about every color imaginable, and don't forget to wear bright colors in open water. When water temperatures get a little bit cooler, there is a thicker silicone swim cap, and it also comes in just about every color imaginable. And finally, when water temperatures dip down below 65 degrees, consider wearing a thicker neoprene swim cap. Earplugs are a matter of personal preference. If water routinely gets trapped in your ears, then they're a must. They not only keep out the water, which can be a maddening annoyance, but they also aid in preventing swimmer's ear. There are two types of earplugs, pre-molded silicone flanges and silicone putty plugs that mold to the unique contour of your ear. There are unique advantages and disadvantages to both. The silicone flanges last longer and are easier to keep clean, but they don't fit as snugly into your ear as the putty plugs. The putty plugs can be molded to the unique contour of your ear, as I said, but they also are more prone to collecting dirt, debris, and sand if not washed off and placed immediately back into their carrying case.
There are multiple advantages to wearing a wetsuit in an open water race. Number one, a wetsuit will provide warmth for you. A layer of water gets in between your skin and the wetsuit, and your body warms that up. So depending upon the length of the swim, the coldness of the water that you're in, that wetsuit can make it much more comfortable for you for the duration. Also, a wetsuit, because of its structure, what it's made out of, the rubber compounds, it will give you flotation. So let's say for some reason you panic, you go into some form of distress, you end up with the cramp or something. Knowing that you have this wetsuit on and it's going to float you will put you in a safer environment for yourself. The third thing about a wetsuit is they're designed for speed. The dynamics of the material, how smooth they are on the outside. This will enable you to be able to be much more efficient through the water. You will be elevated for a higher body position. Speed increases up to 10% are not uncommon for people that are wearing wetsuits. If you don't wear a wetsuit and everybody else in the race is, you are at a disadvantage right from the get-go. Wetsuits have evolved tremendously over the last couple years, much like everything else related to triathlon. In wetsuits, there's one factor that's the most important, and that has to do with proper fit. From the shoulder down to the crotch, the torso is really, really important. You want a wetsuit that's going to be comfortable, that won't be so big that you'll take in volumes of water, and won't be so tight that you can't breathe. You need to have good amount of mobility through your shoulders and your arms. If you're wearing a wetsuit that's too tight, that's too confining, then you're going to find yourself struggling to be able to move through the water when you wear that wetsuit. Around the chest should feel nice and firm against your body, but you have to have that ability to be able to breathe freely. Around the neck, you don't want to have a choking feeling, but also you want to make sure that you're wearing a wetsuit that's not going to create a lot of chafe for you. If the wetsuit feels right, it's going to feel like a second skin. There are a lot of different brands, there are a lot of different styles. You need to try on a number of different wetsuits to see what's the most comfortable for you.
You may discover areas of chafing from wearing your wetsuit, primarily around the neck and possibly your armpits. Several products on the market, such as Body Glide, can prevent chafe. Applying it to your ankles and wrists also makes it easier to remove your wetsuit.
The wetsuits of today are really designed specifically for moving through the water under race conditions, swimming. If you were to try to compete in a surfing wetsuit, you would find yourself in a state of distress, because these are designed to keep you warm on a surfboard, not for racing in an open water event.
When can you wear a wetsuit? Two organizations that govern aquatic sports have regulations pertaining to their use. United States Masters swimming rules state that wetsuits may be allowed at the discretion of the meet director, but if awards are given to wetsuit competitors, they shall be awarded separately from those for non-wetsuit competitors. Any published results or records must clearly indicate which swimmers wore wetsuits. Under USA Triathlon rules, regulations are more specific. If the water temperature is 78 degrees or colder, wetsuits are permitted. Above 78 but below 84 degrees, age groupers may wear them at their discretion. And when the water reaches a temperature of 84 or higher, USAT regulations prohibit the use of wetsuits.
From a purely technical point of view, if you have an efficient crawl or freestyle stroke in the pool, then the crossover to open water swimming is not difficult. Poor technique has a dramatic effect on water resistance and drag. Therefore, an efficient stroke is crucial. Whether you're racing in the pool or competing in open water, your primary goal is to swim more efficiently and thereby faster. Your goal is not to swim stronger with a faster stroke turnover, since this only wears you out quicker.
Developing proper technique and efficiency through the water involves a coordination between the arms, the legs, the hips, and the head.
The human body has a long axis, a rod, through the core of the body from the top of the head downward. It plays an important role in setting up your body position for moving through the water and for proper stroke mechanics. If all rolling motions are through this long axis, then you greatly reduce the amount of drag resistance acting upon your body. An important fact to remember: drag has 4 times as much influence on how fast you swim than does strength. Keep this axis horizontal or parallel to the water with your head looking down and your legs riding on the surface. Visualize yourself swimming through the smallest tube possible in the water to reduce this drag factor. Continually assess what body parts are outside the tube slowing you down. Consider the hydrodynamics of a tugboat and a sailboat. Which one moves through the water easier? If you said the sailboat, you're correct. The tugboat, with its rounded front, has to muscle aside a lot of water to make forward progress, while the narrow, sleek design of the sailboat allows it to zip effortlessly through the water. And that's how you want your body moving through the water, like a sleek, fast sailboat. You want to be on your side throughout most of your stroke because you have less water to push out of the way. To further refine your ability to swim in the smallest tube possible, practice swimming short distances with fins. The faster speed results in more drag resistance and can highlight any inefficiency in your body position or stroke.
Sometimes when you watch swimmers in the pool, you'll see different techniques. And these techniques are because of their different body shape, their different experiences. Some people will utilize a catch-up style stroke, and other times you'll see swimmers use more of an oppositional style stroke. The main consideration, whether you're swimming oppositional or catch-up, is that you maintain constant body movement through the water.
Some swimmers create enough power to move forward while swimming an almost catch-up stroke. Upon reaching out through the water 4 to 6 inches deep, they plant their hand in the water. At this point, the opposing arm is finishing its pull and the body glides forward until the opposing or recovery arm overhead is ready for the drop into the water. At the same time the drop occurs, the same side hip is rolled down, which drives the recovery arm forward. You may have heard the term reach and roll. This type of front quadrant swimming means that you always have one hand forward of your head. By utilizing a roll from the hips, you coordinate the lower and upper body. This integration links the pull to your body core, which produces a more powerful pull than what your arms can do by themselves. Other swimmers can't generate enough power to pull their bodies through the water as easily. These swimmers exhibit more of an oppositional stroke. This means they have a faster turnover rate and do not ride out in front as long as in the catch-up style. It's still important that these swimmers make sure that they have a good catch out in front before beginning their pull. Another difference you'll notice is they pull their hand out of the water prior to getting a full extension of the pulling arm under the body. Caution must be taken to not drop the elbow during the pulling phase, since this decreases efficiency. It's like running on ice. You'll experience slippage. Another thought on technique. You want to anchor your hand firmly in the water before you pull your body over it. Practice creating a hole with your fingertips as your hand enters the water and let your arm drive through the hole. The objective is to create as few bubbles as possible when your hand enters the water, so you're anchoring your hand in solid water and not grabbing less supportive bubbles. Make a game of seeing how quietly and with how few bubbles you make your hand entry. An excellent way to get a better feel for the water is to swim fist drills. Close your hands and swim several laps with fists. Without benefit of open palms, your arms will struggle to compensate and find the best leverage in the water. Focus on catching the water with your forearm. After several laps, open your hands. You'll be amazed at how much better you catch the water. One-arm drills also improve your feel for the water. With one arm stretched out ahead or by your side, stroke with the other arm. When you watch really good swimmers move through the water, you're watching someone use really good technique. And this technique actually boils down to what we call economy of motion. And those swimmers that are really economical in the water, they tend to make that movement look like an art form. Now, because of this, you've got to understand that how you move your body parts through the water really will affect how your whole body moves through the water. Swimming fast is contradictory to what we would do on land. If you were riding a bike and you wanted to go faster, you would push the pedals a lot faster. If you were running, you would move your legs a lot faster in order to be able to run. In swimming, you've got to be careful, because if you move your arms and legs too fast, you create more resistance than you actually need, and you also create slippage. So swimmers actually move their body parts slower in order to be able to move their body faster through the water. Everybody, when they're swimming, whether it's in practice or in a race, should really be conscientious of what their tempo is in relation to their stroke count. Utilizing a tempo timer in practice can help you establish this rhythm. I've mentioned several times the importance of getting a good hip roll and stretching out on your side, the reach and roll. Not only does this lead to more efficient alignment of the body, it also sets you up for good breathing position. If you look at the head position of good swimmers as they breathe, they use the roll of their body to minimize how far to the side they turn their heads, and do so only enough to get their mouths out of the water. Inexperienced swimmers often lift their heads so far out of the water that they disrupt both body roll and their horizontal axis. Practice breathing so you move your head only enough that one eye is out of the water, with the other remaining submerged. The water should be level with the side of your open mouth. Practicing these breathing skills in the pool will enable you to adapt to whatever the conditions are of your open water event.
The first big difference between pool and open water swimming should be obvious. In a pool, there's a black line on the bottom and a T at the end to let you know where you are. In open water swimming, while there's sometimes a lead kayak or zodiac for the faster swimmers to follow, the rest of us have to develop good sighting skills. In addition, even though you may be racing on the same course, the conditions in the open water may change so drastically that you're basically swimming a different course, and that just underscores the need to develop great sighting skills. Buoys or markers floating on the surface of the water aren't always easy to spot. The water can be choppy, wavy, or have intense glare from the sun. Sighting may have to be done on an object that isn't part of the race course itself, something larger and fixed outside the course, such as a building or a tree on a hill. If you're really good, you can tell by the angle at which the current or chop hits your body whether you're maintaining a straight line or not. Sighting techniques involve both psychomotor skill and strategy. Many swimmers lift their heads too far out of the water. This forces their legs down and disrupts that critical horizontal axis. Their forward momentum slows down and they must use extra energy to build back up to racing speed, an energy-draining cycle that goes on for the whole race. Learn to sight without disrupting your horizontal position. Minimize how much you raise your head, just enough to spot your target, thereby maintaining a proper body position, an efficient stroke, and a steady swim speed. Let's talk about what Phil refers to as alligator eyes. Before you start your sight, know what you're looking for. Lift your head slightly, glance forward, and then take your breath. This timing sequence keeps your body horizontal and flows right through a proper breathing pattern. In some races, such as Alcatraz, where currents are a factor, often the best way to know where you're going is to know where you've been. Every few minutes, stroke and roll over onto your back, look, and then roll back over. This way you can compute how much you've drifted from where you started, compare it to where you're heading, and make the necessary adjustments, all without disrupting your forward momentum. This triangulation often helps a slow swimmer go straighter and faster than a fast swimmer who isn't paying attention to his or her course. When sighting in rough water with swells or waves, make sure that your sighting is done when you are at the top of the wave and not down in the trough. Practice your sighting skills in the pool, during your warm-up or your cool-down. Pick an object on the wall at either end of the pool. Every several strokes, lift your head, alligator eyes, see how quickly you can spot the object, and then put your head back into the water. Practice rolling so far over on your side you can see the object underneath your uplifted recovering arm, or do a complete rollover, sighting quickly on the object, and then resume your stroke. How frequently you sight depends on how straight a line you swim. Practice swimming in the pool with your eyes shut. How many strokes do you take before you run into the lane line? The farther you go, the less frequently you need to sight. There are swimmers who can go 15 to 20 strokes without sighting, while most others may need to sight every 4 to 10 strokes. Infrequent sighting can turn a 1.5 kilometer swim into a 1 3/4 kilometer swim. Know if you veer right or left, and pay attention so you don't swim farther than necessary on race day. Bilateral breathing is another important skill to master for open water swimming. If there's a strong wind during your swim and you can only breathe in the direction it's blowing, you could get slapped in the face by waves the entire swim. Bilateral breathing also aids in your ability to sight and stay on a straight course, since you see to both sides. A final benefit from bilateral breathing is your neck and back muscles don't tense from repeated turning to just one side. Unfortunately, there's no magic pill that makes it easy to learn bilateral breathing. Commit several laps during each workout and breathe every 3rd or 5th stroke on your weak side. It takes hundreds of repetitions to reprogram your muscle memory so that a new movement feels natural. That's a long time and a huge investment, but learning to breathe bilaterally will pay you back an infinite amount during your open water lifetime. Sooner or later, you'll face an open water swim with choppy water or currents. In a pool, lane lines do much to flatten the water. There are no currents or waves, and your focus is on repeating one perfect stroke after another. With currents or choppy water, you must adapt your stroke to the conditions. There may be times when waves buffet you from the side. Envision a rag doll in a washing machine. Conditions like this impede your forward motion, make it impossible to get into any kind of rhythm, and may be so severe waves literally snatch at your recovery arm and try to flip you on your back. Stroke adjustments become necessary to maintain optimum body position. Focus on maintaining an anchored hand throughout nearly the entire stroke cycle. Keep your arm extended in front of you, hand firmly anchored in the water until your other arm is about to enter the water, an open water full catch-up stroke. The primary objective is to keep as long or as a stick-like a body position as possible. Both arms should be even with or forward of your chest for the entire stroke cycle. By keeping more than a normal amount of your body weight in front of your chest, you maintain a long axis horizontal body position. This allows you to pull your body through choppy water much more effectively. Think of piercing the water rather than fighting through it or rather than letting it toss you about. A higher arm recovery also protects you from the waves and the chop. The choppier the water, the more exaggerated your stick-like swimming. You may find yourself swimming into or against a current. Increase your stroke rate and focus on swimming through the smallest tube possible. There should be little to no glide at the end of your hand-arm extension. The current is flowing directly over your body and oncoming water wraps itself around even the slightest protrusion, increasing drag resistance and slowing you down. If you need to kick harder, do so, but keep your legs and feet in the tube, limiting the depth of your kick to just below the surface. You may find yourself swimming with the current. Relax and enjoy the freebie. Lengthen your stroke, let the current do most of the work for you, and marvel at how fast you're moving. Drafting is legal in almost all open water swims and triathlons. It can save you a 10 to 20% expenditure of energy. This is huge, especially in triathlons where you still face a bike and run afterwards. The two best places to draft are straight behind the lead swimmer's feet or to the side, behind the wake with your head between their knees and feet. Staying within a meter of these two positions allows for optimal drafting. Practice drafting in the pool with your friends, alternating who leads and who drafts. If you have a tendency to veer right or left, position yourself on the side of the swimmer or pack that will keep you on course. This is a twofold advantage. They give you a free ride and they help you keep on a straight course. When drafting, occasional hand and foot contact is to be expected. However, frequent or continued tapping may irritate the individual, causing him to stop, draw up his legs, and kick backwards into your head and face. On longer swims, be willing to take the lead from time to time. Most importantly, make sure the lead swimmer is following a good line. You may get a free ride, but if the lead swimmer zigzags, you lose whatever advantage is gained by drafting. As long as they hold a good line and their speed matches yours, go for it. Getting in water even as warm as the mid-70s can take your breath away, but when water temperatures start dipping down into the 60s and into the 50s, you're entering a whole new realm of open water swimming. Hypothermia becomes your greatest risk. Loss of body heat occurs as much as 25 times quicker in cold water than in cold air. Even when you're swimming in water as warm as the mid-80s, prolonged exposure eventually can drain body heat away from your 98.6 degree body core. Hypothermia is caused when the rate of heat loss exceeds your body's ability to produce and maintain heat. It's dangerous because it affects your body's core organs, your heart, your brain, and your liver, and it affects your mental and physical dexterity. In extreme cases, it can even lead to loss of consciousness and death. The impact varies greatly from person to person and depends on a variety of factors such as body fat, hydration, fuel stores, fitness levels, fatigue, and alcohol intake the evening before. Sometimes hypothermia doesn't set in until a swimmer actually gets out of the water. During cold water swims, blood circulation through your arms and legs is reduced, so it can protect and warm vital organs. Once out of the water, blood resumes circulation into your now cold limbs. In turn, it cools and upon re-entry reduces your core body temperature. Symptoms of mild hypothermia include slurred speech, shivering, and numbness or tingling in your hands and feet. Going for a run, putting on multiple layers of clothes, drinking warm fluids, and applying heat or hot bottles of liquid to the arteries in the armpits or groin will warm you up. In cases of severe hypothermia, shivering may occur in waves. That is, violent shivering starts and stops, or shivering may stop altogether. Muscles may be rigid, and the victim may have the appearance of being drunk or clumsy. The skin may be pale gray or even white. Appropriate treatment in a case of severe hypothermia is to contact 911. Interim measures include drying off the victim and placing him or her in a shell of total insulation such as multiple blankets or a sleeping bag. If necessary, another person stripped down can climb in the sleeping bag or blanket and use their body heat to help the swimmer. Thanks to wetsuits, the overwhelming majority of you will never experience moderate or severe hypothermia. But wetsuits still are no guarantee that you'll stay warm during a swim. Any number of lean, wetsuited athletes with little body fat still can experience mild hypothermia. Between 20 to 40% of your body heat can be lost through your head. Since your brain needs a steady supply of blood at the right temperature to keep your body functioning, it's important to keep your head warm. Regardless of whether you swim with or without a wetsuit, wear a cap or several, depending upon the water temperature. Individually or in any combination of the 3 types of swim caps previously talked about, latex, silicone, or neoprene can keep your head warm and dry and prevent hypothermia. In addition, cold water trapped in your inner ear can chill your head and body core. Consider wearing earplugs. Up to this point, we've talked about physical barriers such as wetsuits and caps that can protect you from the cold. But have you ever wondered how people can swim in 55-degree water with just a cap, goggles, and swimsuit? Believe it or not, your body is a remarkably adaptive machine, and given the right opportunities, it can adjust to almost anything. Consider legendary open water swimmer Lynn Cox's 2 amazing 1-mile swims in the 32-degree waters of Antarctica in December of 2002. It took months of preparation for Lynn's body to adapt, but Lynn made these swims with only a cap, goggles, and swimsuit.
While you're not Lynn Cox, nor are you getting ready to swim in 32-degree water, you may need to prepare for a cold water swim. You acclimate by gradually increasing your exposure to cold water. If you've never been in before, just stay 5 or 10 minutes the first time. Then the next time you get in the water, increase your exposure by 5 minutes. Thereafter, incrementally increase your exposure until you're comfortable staying in the water as long as your anticipated race time. Most people acclimate within a month. Minimally practice swimming in cold water at least twice a week. Even away from the water for 1 week will greatly erode your base, and 3 to 4 weeks out of the water will bring your body back to ground zero, as though you had never even developed a tolerance.
If you don't have cold water in which to practice, try the following to increase your body's tolerance to cold. Take warm or lukewarm showers, not hot. Sleep with the windows open to let in the cool night air, and use only a sheet for warmth. Wear sandals, not socks and shoes. Wear short or long sleeve shirts, not jackets or sweaters.
Some athletes simply don't have an opportunity to acclimate. They face cold water for the first time on race day. Knowing what to expect can help considerably. The first 3 to 5 minutes of the swim will seem absolutely unbearable. You'll tell yourself, I'll never be able to swim the whole way being this cold. The truth is, when the water in your wetsuit warms up and the exercise increases your body temperature, you'll get warmer and find yourself settling in. Experienced open water swimmers know these first few minutes always are unpleasant, but they also know the initial shock soon wears off.
Sometimes, athletes who have not had a chance to acclimate are unable to catch their breath when they first enter the water. Their chest seizes up and they can't breathe. What do you do if you find yourself in this situation? Slow down or stop and forget about the race. Your only focus now is to regain your breath. Focus on exhaling as hard as you can. Most people focus on inhaling and still can't catch their breath. This is because they've not breathed out all the air in their lungs. Purse your lips and exhale just like you're blowing on that last candle on the cake that won't go out. If you focus on emptying your lungs, the air naturally will begin to flow in when you inhale. Begin back or breaststroking for a minute or two while you continue to focus on exhaling. When you feel comfortable, resume the race. Most people, once they've regained their breath, have no more problems and finish their swim. By taking a minute or two to stop racing and to focus on breathing, you'll quickly be back in the competition. It's amazing. Some athletes will spend up to $500 for a top-of-the-line wetsuit to stay warm, but won't spend 5 minutes to consume the proper nutrition that can do so much to promote inner body warmth. While physically acclimating to cold water certainly is an integral key to staying warm, it's only part of the strategy. Your body's thermostat also is influenced by what fuels it or by what doesn't fuel it. By eating a hot, pre-swim breakfast of easily digestible oatmeal, cream of wheat, grits, or chicken broth, your body can produce a substantial, nutritious fuel to begin burning. And from personal experience, I really can tell the difference in how much colder I feel whenever I happen to skip my standard open water swim breakfast of hot ginger tea and oatmeal with bananas and blueberries. On my way down to Aquatic Park, I sipped from a thermos of very hot Cytomax. It's a popular energy electrolyte replacement drink. The hot Cytomax works on 2 levels. First, I'm maintaining inner body warmth, and secondly, I'm hydrating.
Proper hydration is essential for all swimmers, regardless of whether you're swimming in cold or in warm water. For those of you who swim in warm water, you may not realize it, but you are perspiring. And without being properly hydrated, you increase the likelihood of cramping in your calves and in your feet. For those of you who swim in cold water, it only exacerbates the chance of cramping. In fact, at a recent Bay Area triathlon, nearly 100 swimmers out of the 2,000 field got out of the water and had cramps to varying degrees, some so bad that they had to sit and rub their limbs before they could continue on with the swim. If they would have been properly hydrated, they wouldn't have had this delay.
Another way to keep your body core temperature is to stay dressed warmly before the event. Don't forget to keep that head covered up. Going for a short 5-minute jog before the swim not only will loosen up your muscles, but will crank that body thermostat up a few degrees. When you finish the swim, dress in several layers of baggy clothes that are easy to put on in order to start the rewarming process. As mentioned earlier, hypothermia sometimes sets in after the swim when the blood that is cooled from circulating in your cold limbs re-enters your body. Your hands likely may be so numb that you lose your finer manual dexterity. Don't be alarmed, this happens frequently, but it's a condition that soon goes away. If you're competing in a triathlon, put your cycling or running clothes on beneath your wetsuit. It's virtually impossible to wiggle into a tight-fitting racing singlet when you're wet, and you'll cut down on your transition time by already being dressed. Finally, practice these methods and techniques before the event. Race day is never the time to try anything new, be it equipment, food, or clothing. Experiment with a variety of easily digestible foods or liquids that will enhance your internal warmth. Think of your body as a thermos. Use a wetsuit and cap to build an effective barrier to protect it from the cold, and then fill it with appropriate warm nourishment. For those of you on race day who find yourself in a hotel without access to a warm breakfast, here's a suggestion. If you have a microwave in the room, try zapping a nutrition bar for 10 to 15 seconds in the microwave, but make sure you take it out of the foil wrapper first. Absent a microwave, try running hot water over the sealed energy bar for a minute or so. It tastes good heated up, and you're putting something warm inside you to jumpstart that body thermostat.
Periodization is a training approach that is designed to help you focus on a certain number of events. This can be something that is expanded over a long period of time. For example, somebody who has 3 years to train for the Olympics. Or it could be a block of time that encompasses just an open water season or a triathlon season. Within that season itself, you can break it down into smaller blocks of time. By utilizing the process or the approach of periodization, you block your time to help you become more efficient and more effective in your training. By mapping out long and short-term goals, it becomes easy to develop a training program that will help you reach those goals in maximum physical condition. It also can save you a lot of time and wasted effort and ensure an efficient training regimen. Periodization breaks your training season into 5 specific blocks of time. The general preparation period, when you develop your so-called base, including aerobic endurance and muscle strength, and work on specific skills such as stroke technique. The specific preparation period, when you prepare for the targeted event. It includes muscular endurance, anaerobic endurance, and power. The pre-competition period, when you bring yourself to a performance peak. During this period, you decrease the frequency and duration of training, but maintain its intensity. The competition or tapering period generally is the week leading up to the race, though it can be several weeks for longer distance races. Your goals during this period are physiological rest, maintenance of fitness levels, and mental preparation for the event. The transition period follows your targeted event and allows your body and mind time to recuperate. During this period, your training is minimal or non-existent. It is a good time to try some other physical activity to keep things fresh.
One last footnote regarding your physical training. Use your practice time in the open water wisely. Rather than swim in a mile or in a mile and a half straight, break it up into segments. And during each segment, zero in on a specific skill. Often it's said that most athletic performances are 90% mental. Therefore, don't neglect this important aspect of your training. Mental practice can also help you overcome anxieties or unexpected circumstances, and it can enhance or correct skill-related movements.
Imagery is one form of mental practice that allows you to make a mind-body connection to reflect race day conditions. There are 4 steps to a successful imagery program. The first is learn how to relax. One simple method is through square breathing. Close your eyes, breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for another 3 seconds, and then exhale for 3 seconds. Doing this several times slows your heart rate down, reduces anxiety, and calms the mind and body. Another relaxation method is to utilize muscle flexion and muscle relaxation drills. Tense up the muscles in a given area of your body and then focus on letting all the tension flow away. Work from your body extremities towards your body core and end with the facial muscles to produce a relaxed feeling. Second, learn to concentrate. This isn't always easy, especially if there's a lot going on. But monitoring your thoughts and staying focused on the moment can mean the difference between an ordinary race and an exceptional one. Third, learn to visualize. Imagine all the senses as well as the emotional feelings that go along with being involved in a competition, before, during, and after. Picture the absolute perfect swim you want to achieve. Last, write down every detail of what you want to happen during your swim. And then, coupled with your visualizations, review this script for 5 minutes every day leading up to race day. You'll be surprised by the many positive benefits.
Let's distinguish between pain and discomfort, both of which can impact your swim. Pain is the body's way of saying that something is wrong. It hurts badly, and continued activity will have potentially serious consequences. Discomfort is just that. It's your body's way of definitely saying it's out of its comfort zone. There are 2 ways to deal with discomfort. One is to associate with it. For example, when your body tells you that you're ready to stop, you're hurt, you don't want to go any further, focus and concentrate on proper form and technique instead. Go through a mental checklist, and you'll likely find something to correct that will diminish the discomfort. If you find yourself focusing on the discomfort again, you have that mental checklist to go right back to. The second way to deal with discomfort is to disassociate from it. For instance, focus on the goal. Focus on what it would mean for you to finish this race. Think of all the people that supported you during the time that you were training. By shifting the focus from the obstacle to the goal, you'll be replacing negative mental talk with positive reaffirmations. Mental practice can help you to be prepared for the unknown and the unexpected. For example, you might get a cramp. You might get an unexpected wave wash over you, or you might get a mouthful of water. If this happens, just relax. Let yourself go into an easy mode of breaststroke. Turn over on your back. Just kind of allow yourself to get a fix of exactly what happened. By doing this, you're going to have your composure and presence of mind that's going to allow you to take care of that immediate situation. Then you'll be able to deal with it more quickly and resume your race.
It's the week before the race. Make a checklist of everything you'll need for race day. This can include your swimsuit, wetsuit, goggles, don't forget an extra pair for backup, body glide, talcum powder, or some other kind of lubricant, towel for the transition area, fuel, both solid and fluid, directions to the event, map of the course or transition areas, sandals or other shoes to walk to or from the event, and clothes for after the race.
Making a checklist of everything you need on race day can help reduce pre-race jitters. It can also become part of a ritual. It can put you into a positive mindset for race day.
On site, familiarize yourself with the race course. Is it parallel to shore? Is it an out and back swim? Does it go point to point? What's the water temperature? Are there currents that will affect your line? Will you be swimming into the sun at any time, and will this affect your ability to sight? If possible, swim the course the day before the event. Talk to others who have done the race previously. At least make sure you are present for the pre-race briefing where important information or any changes are announced. Know which wave you are assigned to and plan enough time to look over the start area, the race course, and the finish area. What will you sight on during the swim? Are there buoys, and if so, how big are they and what shape? Some races use a different shaped buoy to designate turns. Is the water flat enough to see the buoys, or will you need to focus on fixed objects outside the immediate race area? What does the finish line look like, and can you visualize how it looks from out on the water? Position yourself in the right place for the start. The first few moments of a swim are often the aquatic version of roller derby. Body contact from flailing arms and legs can be the norm for the first 3 or 4 minutes. Faster swimmers position themselves where they can get into the race right away, usually in the middle or front of the group. If you are not fast, but position yourself there, you'll get run over and smacked repeatedly as they swim over you. By lining up on the outside edge, you'll limit the body contact at the beginning of the swim. This is true for both in-water and beach starts. If you're not comfortable swimming in a crowd, start near the back or side and then work yourself up through the field. Your start may include diving off a platform or jumping from a boat. Practice these starts so your goggles don't come off. Secure your goggles by wearing a second swim cap and sandwiching them in between. For beach starts, you line up on the shore and run until the water is deep enough to dive into. Know the bottom conditions. Are they sandy, muddy, rocky? Are there sandbars farther out? Dolphin diving 2 or 3 times as you first get into the water is popular, but if the water is deep enough to dolphin dive, then it's deep enough to start swimming. Practice both entries and see what works best for you. Have a race strategy for your swim. Do you want to go out fast, get away from the crowd, and then settle into a pace? If so, practice sprinting several hundred yards and then settle into your pace. Towards the end of the swim, how much energy do you have in reserve to outsprint the swimmer who has been next to you the whole way? Do you have experience rounding buoys without slowing down? If you don't like body contact, stay 10 or 15 feet off the buoy, since what was a spread out line of swimmers always reforms into a tight group here. To exit the swim, it's quickest to swim until you touch the bottom with your hand. Stand and then run out of the water. Many people use a dolphin dive to exit the water, but if it's deep enough to swim, it's faster to swim. If there are breaking waves, you may get an assist by body surfing, but be aware of hidden obstacles such as rocks. Most open water swim finish lines are taken at a spot well out of the water. Make sure to move quickly to the finish line. In a triathlon, many athletes remove their cap and goggles and then struggle with one hand to remove the top half of their wetsuit. Reverse this order. If you leave your cap and goggles on, you have 2 free hands. Once the top half is down, then take off your cap and goggles.
Open water swimming has it all. Freedom in wide open spaces, the ability to test your physical and mental limitations, adrenaline-producing water conditions, and a landscape far more exciting than those stuck on shore.
Hopefully what we've provided in this video will make your experience safe and enjoyable to many years of successful open water swimming. Thanks for joining us.
The allure of Alcatraz is that for many years people believed that the deadly currents, the cold water, and the man-eating sharks made it impossible for anyone to escape. The truth is, if you comfortably can swim 1.5 miles, if you properly condition yourself, and if you use knowledgeable pilots, guides, or race directors, you can escape. During the special bonus section, I'm going to explain the dynamics of the bay, sighting and landmarks, and what to expect on race day. So, what's the objective of an Alcatraz swim? Hopefully you said it's to swim back to shore. But do you want to do it like this? Yes, these are actual routes taken by GPS-outfitted swimmers who swam so far off course they had to be picked up by the support boat and repositioned. Or would you like to take nice clean courses like these? For those of you preparing for a swim back into Aquatic Park, do you want to swim large curved courses like these? Or do you want to take clean straight shots across? If your preference is for nice clean straight courses, then you need to understand the dynamics of the bay. The San Francisco Bay floods or fills up with water and ebbs or empties approximately every 12 to 13 hours. Water levels can change over 8 feet in 6 short hours. The whole bay flows in and out of the narrow 1 mile wide Golden Gate at a rate of over 4.5 million gallons per second. As you can imagine, this creates tremendous currents,
In fact, they can exceed 6 knots or nearly 7 miles per hour for you landlubbers. To illustrate how quickly the water moves, the current record for swimming between the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge, a distance of over 6 miles, is less than 1 hour. That's less than 10-minute miles. Some of us can't even run that fast.
This brings us to the #1 rule about swimming from Alcatraz. The San Francisco Bay is a fast-flowing river that never stops. Repeat after me. The San Francisco Bay is a fast-flowing river that never stops.
So how are people able to navigate these tricky currents? Well, let's look at the 2 most common routes. For events like the Escape from Alcatraz and the Alcatraz Challenge, race directors coincide the swims with the ebb or outgoing current. The objective is to get across the channel as the current pushes you west. In essence, you're forming a partnership with Mother Ocean. You swim south and she pushes you west, where hopefully you'll end up at the St. Francis Yacht Club or Crissy Field. For events like the South End Invitational, the Shark Fest, or the Swim with the Centurions, race directors time their events around slack water, meaning when the current stops going one way and starts reversing. Depending on the day, the current may either be flooding or ebbing when you begin. With a flood start, you'll feel yourself being pushed east, and you may try to overcompensate by aiming straight for the opening to Aquatic Park. This is a serious mistake since the current will begin reversing, pushing you west sometime during the second half of the swim. It's much better to come in 100 yards east of the opening and float in on the current than it is to be 10 feet west of the opening, swimming against a current so powerful that you cannot make any headway. With an ebb start, you'll feel yourself being pushed slightly west towards the Golden Gate Bridge. At some point during the second half of the swim, the current reverses itself and you will be pushed east, hopefully to the opening. The bad news is that each year, many rookie swimmers, are those who think they're more powerful than Mother Ocean, or those who think the race directors exaggerate the power of the currents, make the mistake of aiming too directly at the finish. They either overshoot the finish, as shown here, or they miss the opening to Aquatic Park. The good news is that there are ways to salvage these mistakes. If you're participating in the Escape or Challenge, the swim's taking you west on the ebb current, and you overshoot the finish, don't waste precious time and strength trying to swim back up against the current. Chances are you'll swim in place and not go anywhere. Instead, allow the current to push you into the beach, then run back and into the swim chute. It's much easier to run 100 yards back to the swim finish than battle your way against the frequently strong currents. For the Invitational, Shark Fest, or Centurion swims back into Aquatic Park, here are your fallbacks. If you find yourself west of the opening, fighting the ebb or outgoing tide, swim underneath the Muni Pier and back to the opening. The support pilings of the pier greatly reduce the flow of the water. The difference is so great that a swimmer on the outside of the pier may be swimming in place while the swimmer underneath the pier is making progress. If you find yourself east of the opening, fighting a flood or incoming tide, your swim is still salvageable, but at a much greater cost. Allow the current to carry you down to the end of the breakwater, and then swim back up the inside where the current is not so strong. Hopefully you'll never need these alternate escape routes, but it's good to know they exist.
Knowing how the currents in the bay work is only part of the recipe for a successful Alcatraz swim. The other parts are knowing the prominent landmarks and proper sighting. Depending on race day currents, the race director may have you sight on any number of onshore objects. It's important to recognize these and to use them to guide you home since there aren't any buoys out in the water to follow.
On swims where the current first pushes you east and then carries you west to Aquatic Park, there are several landmarks you must know. Furthest to the east is San Francisco's signature pyramid building. Next is the Jeremiah O'Brien, a gray naval ship and one of the most commonly used landmarks for the first half of the swim. Next, and close to one another, are the Eureka, an old white paddle wheel steamship, and the Balclutha, a red three-masted schooner. Perhaps the most noticeable and frequently referenced landmark is the twin-tower apartment building known as the Fontana Towers. Directly below is the very visible and very white Maritime Museum. On swims where the current first pushes you west and then carries you east into Aquatic Park, a prominent landmark is Fort Mason, 3 yellow buildings situated on piers. To the left, on the other side of the green-treed area, is the square white pump house. The Muni Pier with the unique dome structure at its end is the next landmark. Finally, the Fontana Towers and Maritime Museum also can be used. For those of you riding the ebb to St. Francis or Crissy Field, you may start off sighting on the Fontana Towers or Fort Mason, depending on how strong the current is. And if the gods are smiling down on you on race day, the sun will be out, allowing you to sight on the goddess of all landmarks, the 977-foot orange and white Sutro Communications Tower. This structure is situated in such a manner that it's possible to sight on it the entire swim. Although your ultimate destination is on the other side of the distinctive red roof of the St. Francis Yacht Club, you never actually sight on it or swim towards it until you are about 150 yards away. Any sooner, and the currents will carry you right past the finish line. Remember your partnership with Mother Ocean. Your job is to swim back to shore and let her carry you west. If you both do your jobs, you'll float right into the swim finish. If you try to do her job and aim west, I guarantee she'll get angry and kick your butt. I've learned this the hard way too many times. Another counterintuitive aspect of the St. Francis and Crissy Field Alcatraz swims also is linked to your partnership with Mother Ocean. In most swims, you follow the people up ahead of you. In the escape or the challenge, this can be a costly mistake. Think about it. Swimmers way up ahead of you will be to the west, to your right. They are to the west or right of you because they have swum further south back to shore, which has allowed the current to carry them further west. If you aim where they are, by the time you get that far south and closer to shore, the current will have carried you even further west. Don't be lulled into following them. Stay your course. Great, you understand the currents, you know the landmarks. Now let's put it together and learn how to sight and read the currents. To me, this is the most thrilling part of an Alcatraz swim. I find myself constantly taking readings to see where I am, to understand what the current's doing, and to make minute-by-minute adjustments. It's how I can take such a straight, clean line. Up to this point, we focused on sighting on landmarks on shore, but during the first half of an Alcatraz swim back to Aquatic Park, the best way to know where you're going is to know where you've been. Regularly, I stroke and roll over on my back, locate Alcatraz, then stroke and roll back onto my stomach. Or I'll roll to one side so far that I can look back under my recovering arm to locate Alcatraz. What I'm doing is triangulating to keep myself in a straight line with my onshore landmark and with Alcatraz behind me. Otherwise, I might be sighting in front of me, but drifting further and further off course without even knowing it. During the second half of my swim back to Aquatic Park, I know the current's going to start changing direction, so I begin a similar series of triangulations. I never know exactly when the new current will kick in, but I want to be able to tell as soon as it does. The concept is very simple. The execution takes practice. Just like at the beginning of the swim, when I want to keep Alcatraz, my body, and the onshore landmark in alignment, I now want to keep my body, an anchor landmark on the shoreline, and an onshore reference landmark all in alignment. Let's look at an example of this on a swim where the ebb, or outgoing current, is starting to kick in and carry me west. For this example, we'll pick the masts of the Balclutha as the intermediate or anchor landmark. And I'll pick up the Fontanas as my onshore reference landmark. If I keep everything lined up, then I know I'm taking a straight line. If the reference landmark, the Fontanas, begins moving west, then I know that I am too, and I can make the necessary adjustments in swim direction. Let's look at when the flood or incoming tide has begun to kick in. For this example, we use the light poles on Muni Pier as the anchor landmark and the Maritime Museum as the reference landmark. Notice how the Maritime Museum is moving east past the anchored light poles? This means we're also moving east. Triangulation sighting isn't as critical when heading out to St. Francis or Crissy Field. Your primary objective, as we've already talked about, is to form that critical partnership with Mother Ocean. Just one last inside tip on these two ebb swims. East, or to the left of the red-roofed St. Francis Yacht Club, is a third mile of large boulders called riprap. Never get closer than about 100 yards from the riprap, as there are often back eddies swirling around. Instead, stay out several hundred feet and ride the current on into your finish point. The big day's finally here, so what can you expect? Well, first, the disclaimer. There are no guarantees Mother Ocean will cooperate with your plans for swimming from Alcatraz. Based on my personal experience as a participant in over 400 scheduled Alcatraz swims since 1993, nearly 8% have been canceled due to adverse weather conditions, including impenetrable fog, gale force winds, 4-foot chop, and unpredictable currents caused by excessive rain runoff.
While you may be disappointed if the swim is canceled, the race director feels even more disappointed. Months and months of preparation completely derailed. Bear in mind, your safety is of paramount importance. Accept the fact it's the primary responsibility of the race director to cancel the race if, in his judgment, for whatever reason, the conditions don't offer sufficient safety and security to the swimmers. Let's also dispel the rumors about sharks in the bay. Yes, I'm not going to lie to you, there are 5 species out there, but they don't have the slightest bit of interest in eating you. They're as apt to deviate from their normal food source as you are to develop a craving for rats and insects.
Think about it from another perspective. Sharks are predators, creatures of opportunity. Put yourself in the shark's place, even the hungriest of sharks. Would you want to be anywhere near a crowd of 500 to 1,500 strange, unfamiliar creatures who are flailing about in the water? Would you want to be anywhere near the dozens of noisy support boats? Truth be told, during an Alcatraz swim, all the wildlife within a 2-mile radius has been scared away.
Of the 30,000 people who have swum from Alcatraz, and of the thousands of Dolphin and South End Rowing Club members who have been swimming in the bay for over 130 years, no one has ever even seen a shark while swimming, much less been bitten by one. I hate to destroy this important self-image you may have of yourself, but you will not be the one wearing the karmic shark sign that says, "Eat me." The great white sharks that prowl the ocean off the coast of San Francisco and that occasionally take bites out of surfers mistaken for seals don't come inside the San Francisco Bay. There are 16 tributaries carrying tons of sediment emptying into the bay. All this sediment irritates the shark's gills. They stay out where the water is cleaner.
Last, people frequently ask about the quality of the water. Thanks to organizations like San Francisco Baykeeper and the Surfrider Foundation, the waters in San Francisco Bay and the surrounding oceans are cleaner than they've been in decades. So today, the race is on, the weather is cooperating, the sharks are nowhere to be found, and you're on your way out to Alcatraz to participate in the most exhilarating open water swim challenge there is. As the ferry heads out, look for the landmarks. If you don't see them, ask a fellow racer. As the boat positions itself, get ready. When you're given the word or signal to jump, remember there are between 500 to 1,500 other people waiting to race, and the transition from ferry to water needs to happen quickly, within 5 minutes. Jump in the water, ideally 3 at a time, and immediately swim away to get out of the jump zone and allow others to jump in turn. If you've ever seen any old World War II movies where soldiers are parachuting out of the back of an airplane as quickly as they can, you get the idea of what needs to happen. Alcatraz swims do not have a history of clean starts. Think about it. The ferry, the kayaks, the support boats, and the swimmers who have already jumped are all in a moving body of water waiting for the race start. It's virtually impossible to keep this many objects floating together in one place amidst the currents for more than a minute or two. If you are competitive and interested in placing, then be the first to get off the boat. If you are simply interested in completing the swim, let others get off first. Some Alcatraz events use timing chips that start your time as soon as you step over an electronic mat at the ferry door. This means you can start racing the instant you hit the water. Water support during an Alcatraz swim is generally superb. Kayaks flank the group of swimmers on both sides to keep them from swimming too far off course. Outside the kayaks is another flank of roving power boats. Should you have problems, simply wave your hand over your head and a Zodiac or kayak will come to assist. If a kayaker redirects your course, listen to him. Many of these folks have been kayaking Alcatraz swim for years. They know what they're talking about. If you get totally off course or are lagging too far behind, a sag boat will pick you up and reposition you. This only happens when support personnel know there is no way you will reach shore. Do not argue and get in the boat. You won't be disqualified if repositioned. Argue and refuse to get in the boat and you will be disqualified.
If you've paid attention during this DVD, you're not going to make any strategic errors and you're going to have the time of your life. For many of you, the most difficult part of an Alcatraz swim comes in the days and weeks leading up to the swim as you beat yourself up with mental negativity and self-doubt. Believe me, once you actually jump in the water, you'll be stoked.
I always tell people to stop halfway through the swim and take 10 seconds to look around. Behind is Alcatraz with Angel Island looming in the background. To the east are the Oakland Hills. To the west is the Golden Gate Bridge and the Marin Headlands. And in front of you is the majestic city of San Francisco. This is a mental video that will stay with you the rest of your life.
The addiction of Alcatraz is that it's a thinking swim that's never the same twice, ever. I always joke it's the Forrest Gump box of chocolate swims because you never know what you're going to get. Once you've swum Alcatraz, you'll never want to fly in or out of San Francisco without sitting by the window seat to pick out the rock down below and the route you swam. Best of luck to you and enjoy your Alcatraz adventure.